Yo, what is up, guys? It's your boy Mike. You already know what is up and what is good. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how the OKC Thunder can actually compete with the Golden State Warriors. Now, I've mentioned in previous videos on how the OKC Thunder are the best matchup against this Warriors team. And I still believe that even after the Warriors acquired DeMarcus Cousins in free agency. I still believe that. Now, if you go back and look at the games and how the Warriors are defended by the OKC Thunder, that is your prime way of beating them. Guys that can defend and score at the perimeter. That's what the Lakers put together this season, and that's what the Rockets had last season. But in case of the Rockets, the reason the Rockets came closer is because, one, OKC didn't get a chance to face them in the playoffs, and the Rockets have more offensive weapons than OKC does. OKC has defensive-minded players, but the Rockets have those players too, but they also have those offensive players as well. OKC picked up some solid pieces in the offseason, so that's why I see them as potentially being able to beat them in the 7-game series. I've mentioned this in a previous video before in my Western Conference playoff predictions. You can go watch that video if you haven't seen it already, but I said in that video, if it is an OKC and Golden State Warriors matchup anywhere in the playoffs, I have the OKC Thunder beating them in 7 games. They are the best matchup. They have 3 guys that can guard Kevin Durant: Paul George, Jerami Grant. Now, the only reason I say Jerami Grant is because his length. He may not have the defensive prowess that Paul George or Robertson has, but he has the length just to match up with him and just put a body on him and put someone in his face and put a hand on the ball so someone can contest his shot. So he's just really long. And then, of course, you got Robertson, their best defender on the team. So they have 3 defensive guys on their team. And then you got Russell Westbrook leading the head of the team. And then you got Steven Adams down low, a great underrated center for them. Now, if you watch how they defend the Warriors, they do an excellent job of defending the Warriors, getting in Steph Curry's face, getting a body on Kevin Durant, locking down Draymond and getting him out of the question. And then same thing with Kevin Durant. They just have to keep someone on him at all times, and they have the personnel to do that. And you see how they do that in every game of the season. There was one game of the season where it got away from them later in the game, so that's one way the Warriors can beat them, is, firing on all cylinders. That's just what it's going to have to take from them. But the Thunder can always play defense. They always play defense, but sometimes it just gets away from them, and that's how the Warriors can really excel and get past that mark. With that being said, I fully believe that if it's the OKC and Golden State Warriors matchup anytime during the playoffs, I strongly believe it will go 7 games, and the Thunder will have a really good chance of beating them in 7 games. You also have guys that are not afraid to play against these guys. They aren't afraid to go at them, and especially in Russell Westbrook, he doesn't care who's on the floor against him. He just cares about his teammates, getting them involved and getting them looks, and sometimes he even has to take ill-advised shots just because he's Russell Westbrook. So I understand that part. He does take ill-advised shots for some possessions, but he's still a good facilitator at best. He's that, and he's just not afraid. He has a full-on motor every game, every minute and second of the game. That's a really good key to have on offense, to have someone like Russ, and just to push the ball on fast break opportunities, get people like Paul George open. And then they picked up some really nice players in Dennis Schroeder and Nerlens Noel. I forget the last piece they picked up, but they just rounded out their bench to an even better team this year than they were last year. And you saw how they competed against the Warriors last year without the players that they have last year. Without Russell Westbrook on the floor, the OKC Thunder's plus-minus net rating, it just plummeted when he sat down. Now you have an established starting point guard on the bench for you and Dennis Schroeder, and then you have Nerlens Noel, a backup center or power forward, depending what they want to play him as. So you really have a nice option there to go to your bench when Russell Westbrook and Paul George and Grant sit down. And then they got young players such as Josh Hoistis, and then you got Terrence Ferguson also off the bench. They have a really nice defensive-minded team, and they have players that can create for themselves on offense, and I really like this team going forward against the Warriors. I think they have the best chance against the Warriors. They are one of the best matchups in the league against the Warriors. Another one is the Rockets, and another one is the Jazz. Those 3 teams are probably the best matchup for the Warriors. Now, the reason I don't say the Lakers yet is because the Lakers, I have not seen them together yet. Yes, on paper, you may think that they can compete against the Warriors just because they have LeBron, or just because the upcoming in Kuzma, Ingram, and Lonzo, and then the acquisitions, of course, of their players in the offseason. But again, you have to see how they work together first. You can't just say on paper that they'll be good, similar to that Cavs team in the beginning of the season, or even when they came back together fully healthy and they were just a disaster. So you have to see how they work together on the floor first before looking at them on paper, which is the only option we have right now, I understand, but you still got to see how they work out together. So with that being said, I've seen how this Thunder team competes against those Warriors. I know how they compete against them, and that's why I have strong feelings in believing that this Thunder team can and will beat the Warriors in 7 games, regardless of who's on the floor. I don't care who it is. They could have Cousins, Draymond, KD, Clay, and Steph. I don't even care who they have. I just know that the Thunder can match up against the Warriors. But in some cases it's weird because against other teams that are bad or mediocre, they just don't show up. Maybe it's just the competition level. Maybe that's a competition aspect of the game where you just feel like you don't need to play as hard, so you slack off, and then that's when the other team can take advantage of you. Whereas you see the Warriors down there on the bench and you're like, we got to step up our game, and they don't slack off to where they up their game, they up their level of play. So maybe that's just a competition level thing. But yeah, I strongly believe that the Thunder have a good chance of contending for a championship this year. I still believe that. I still believe Russell Westbrook, Paul George make a great duo. So I believe with the acquisitions of who they picked up in the offseason, rounding out their bench, getting players like Alex Abrinas like him, maybe they up their minutes with Kyle Singler. Young players like that, they could still have an impact on the floor with these players together. So just to fill in some spots that they may need when someone sits down. So I strongly believe that the Thunder can beat out the Warriors in a 7-game series, and I really believe that can happen. So guys, let me know what you think about this take. Let me know what you think about how the Thunder compete and match up against the Warriors. Are the Warriors' dominance level being overstated? Are teams closing the gap on the Warriors now? That's why I mentioned in my opening statement in my Western Conference playoff predictions, I stated that next year it won't look as easy for the Warriors because teams are starting to close the gap, and that's why you'll see the Warriors start to struggle at the beginning of the season because one, they probably won't have Boogie at the beginning of the season, so they'll still be the same old Warriors team that they were last year until Boogie comes back. That's why I think they'll struggle a little bit in the beginning and the middle of the season, and not like struggling like they can't get over 500 or they're right around 500. I'm not talking like that. I'm talking about it won't look as easy for them and they won't look as dominant. Their teams are getting better. Teams are starting to close the gap towards the Warriors, so they won't look as dominant next year. They'll start to realize that teams are getting better. Teams are putting together players to beat them out, so that's why they're starting to see, this gap. It's not like how it was in 2016-17 when they were just sweeping through the playoffs. No. So I think that the Warriors will not look as dominant next year. Teams are starting to close the gap. So let me guys know what you think about this take. Again, let me know what you guys think about this Warriors team. Is their dominance overstated? Do you think the Thunder or another team has a better chance of matching up against them? So let me know what you guys think. It's been your boy Mike, and you can let that beat drop.